Will Nebraska get back to the promised land? Will they be the same team they were in the 90s? Is Matt Rhule the next Tom Osborne? And what about Dylan Raiola? Where is he going? First, a little about myself. My name is Jeff. I was born in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lived off of North Park Boulevard, if you know where that is, not too far from the stadium. Became a Nebraska fan probably 6 or 7 years old, back when Bob Devaney was still head coach and Tom Osborne was the offensive coordinator. Yes, I'm that old. Got to watch the greatest player play for Nebraska and Johnny Rodgers. Some of you might disagree. I know you've probably seen video on YouTube, but TV was different back then. It wasn't as clear and crystal as you see it today. You had to see him in person to really appreciate what he could do. I've never seen one that could go full speed and on a dime stop, make a 90-degree turn, and keep going full speed. I mean, you and I do that, we'd break our leg. That's why he was so tough to catch. Plus, he played wingback. He didn't play halfback, running back. Tom tried to get him the ball as much as he could in any way. There's only one other person I even saw him come close to making moves like that, and he did not play for Nebraska. If you know who it is, put it down in the comments below who you think it is. But other than that, I've seen both in person. I just think Johnny Rodgers, mainly for his time, was just the greatest player. I really do think we have the greatest fans in the world.
I think Nebraska fans are the greatest fans at all of college football. They have the greatest respect for the way college football should be played. They respect their team and the opponents better than any place I've ever been.
I think the fans' loyalty, the noise factor that's on the field, and the sea of red when you look out and you've got 77,000 fans out there.
I've seen it. I've lived all over this country. I've been all over this world. I've ran into a Nebraska fan in England, and we sat there and just talked Nebraska the whole time. You don't see that from any other fan base. You know, my brother went to the Big 12 championship in '96. That whole stadium was red. I've been to many games down in Texas. Nebraska travels. I've been out to the Rose Bowl when they played UCLA back in the late 80s. You just don't see that anywhere else. I always tell everybody, you cut me, I bleed red. So is Nebraska really going to get back to the promised land? I think they're going to be relevant again. I think there will be a winning team making a bowl game again. Well, I don't know if they'll get back to the 90s. In the 90s, they dominated everybody. I would love it to be back then. I just don't see that. Doesn't mean it can't be, but I can see them consistently winning. I think it's Matt Rhule, the next Tom Osborne. I doubt it. But I think he's the right one. Think about what he's done. He was hired after the Iowa game, so at the end of November. Most teams that get rid of their head coach, and we got rid of Scott early, and hire a coach at the end of the season, November, December, does not usually have a very good recruiting class that year. Commits end up decommitting and going somewhere else and all that. And Matt Rhule came in here within 2 months and not only put a recruiting class together, put in a top 25 in the country recruiting class. Number 4 in the Big Ten behind Ohio State, Michigan, and I believe it was Penn State. And he did all that in 2 months and on a team that has not won more than 4 games in the last 3 or 4 years. So what's he going to do when he's been here a whole year and he's making a bowl game or winning 6, 7, 8 games? And the one thing I've learned about Coach Rhule is he's a likable guy. When you hear him in his interviews and he kind of goes on these shows, after you listen to him for a while, I could see why he could sit in someone's living room and convince a recruit to come into Lincoln. Take Dylan coming here a couple weeks ago with his dad and his uncle to go to that basketball game. And then he had a standing ovation. And then he had little kids wanting his autograph. And you're not going to get that anywhere else. He could have went to Georgia to a game or USC to a game, or even Texas to a game, and he would have just been any other student. No one would have acknowledged him. They wouldn't even know he's there. I guarantee you, while Dylan was there and walking around Nebraska, he was probably constantly asked for. He was put on a pedestal. And that's just how Nebraska fans are. They already know who he is. They know how great he is. Not on top of that, his dad played at Nebraska, and Dominic played at Nebraska when they were still pretty relevant. So he knows how the winning tradition is. And I'm going to tell you right now, it probably bothers Dominic just as much as it bothers me that Nebraska's down where they are, and he wants them back to that promised land. And how much better would that be with his son doing it? I think with Matt Rhule, we got the right guy. He's already started off well in the recruiting camp this year. I know we got a 4-star athlete out of Texas. I think he could be a wide receiver, but I think he's more for the secondary, the speed on the secondary, putting him there with safety or maybe a corner. But we'll see about that one. Now let's get to Dylan Raiola. You're hearing it from me first. Dylan Raiola is coming to Nebraska. Simple. He's coming to Nebraska. Let me tell you why. I know, like in my household, we're all about Nebraska. We root for Nebraska. Nothing else. My kids already know that because that's who I root for. And Dominic's no different. If you cut Dominic, he bleeds red. He's just like me. He wants Nebraska relevant. I know he's been putting it in Dylan's ear. He's heard about it for years. Plus, he doesn't get that shock factor that a lot of recruits get when they come to Lincoln and go, oh, wow, this is different from everywhere else. He already knows it. I know a lot of people saying, well, he wants to go to USC because they produce Heisman Trophy winners. Yeah, USC doesn't produce. Riley does not produce Heisman Trophy winners. The player produces. You put players around them and the talent of the player, and that's your Heisman Trophy. Remember, Nebraska's had 3 Heisman Trophy winners too. All right, he can win a Heisman in Lincoln just like he can anywhere else. Plus, players like Dylan who know they are a top-notch player. They are #1 in the country. They don't scare easy. They feel like, I don't need to go to a winning team. I can make a winning team. And how much great would it be for him to come here, turn Nebraska around, and be the one that did it. Be part of the one who did it. And I think that would just make Dominic and his uncle proud that Dylan is the one that came in here and helped turn this program around. His last trip is in Lincoln, which for most players, for most recruits, that's a big deal because they've never been to Lincoln. Dylan been to Lincoln so many times, it's like coming home. So you heard it from me. I just don't see it going any other way. Hopefully I'm right. I want to thank everyone for being part of the very first video of the Big Red Country. And if you don't mind, if you could please subscribe and click on that notifications button. Believe it or not, that's how YouTube judges everybody, is by how many subscribers and how many views you get. So if there's anything you guys want to discuss, please put that down in the comments and we'll discuss that. And I will see you the next time. Go Big Red.